Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at. Welcome to this episode of the Scott Ritter Show. When we reflect on what the situation is in Ukraine today in regards to the special military operation, there's a narrative that's forming in the West. One is that the battlefield is static, primarily because Russia has failed to accomplish its objectives, and Ukraine, with the assistance of NATO, has launched effective counterattacks that have driven Russian forces back in the north, in Kharkov, and in the south, in Kherson. And that in response to this, Russia has unleashed a devastating assault on the civilian infrastructure of Ukraine, punishing, in effect, the Ukrainian population for the failure of the Russian military leadership to accomplish its objectives. That's the Western version. There's another side to this story. And that side is that Russia, having not provided sufficient resources to the task of the special military operation, has gone on the defensive while it mobilizes over 300,000 new troops. And in the meantime, Russia is carrying out a punishing strike against the critical infrastructure necessary to sustain the war effort in Ukraine, thereby degrading the effectiveness of the Ukrainian ability to continue this conflict. The other aspect of this is that despite the fact that NATO has provided tens of billions of dollars worth of military equipment to the Ukrainian armed forces, the majority of this equipment has been destroyed on the field of battle, along with tens of thousands of Ukrainian forces. Now, while Russia is building up its capability, Ukraine's capability to continue the conflict is diminishing. What's the truth? Who knows? Well, we just so happen to have somebody today as a guest on the show who can provide some insight to that. We have Major General Apti Alaudinov. He is a field commander. He is on the ground in, I believe, in the special military operation. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the show. Okay, well, I hope you can hear me. I'll go ahead and ask a question. You're the commander of the Chechen Special Forces operating in, I believe, in the Lugansk area. I was hoping you could provide the listeners with just a little background.
I'm not in Luhansk directly. I'm in Popasnaya now, where it's not so quiet.
Where it's not all quiet. Well, I wish you the said. You're a major general in the Russian National Guard. You're the commander of the Chechen Special Forces. Could you describe for the listener what your role is right now? What role do you play in the special military operation?
Good afternoon. Let me start from the fact that I'm the assistant of the head of the Chechen Republic. Then I'm the commander of the special detachment of Akhmat. And after that, I'm the deputy commander of the 2nd Army Corps of the Luhansk People's Republic on the ground. You understand very well that my first position and the second position and the name of the special detachment Ahmad are saying for themselves, and I directly organize the work of my detachment on the ground at the front, and I'm dealing with the destruction of the enemy, and we believe that we can make it, and we have enough forces for that. And I'd like to support you in saying that Ukraine, with help of NATO, is trying to do something at this section of the front. And I'd like to correct you a little bit still that NATO bloc using Ukraine is trying to weakening Russia and to defeat us, to defeat Russia. That's I wanted to stress once again. And myself, as the commander of special troops of Akhmat, I'm one of the commanders who is part of the general troops of the Russian Federation. I am proud of that, and I believe that I'm on the side where the truth is. I have to note that once the soldier of American forces who is directly present today on this show also takes the correct position today, and I believe that he is taking the side where the God is. And that is God. This is good that he understands the essence of this conflict, and my gratitude goes to him for that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I want to point out to our listeners that you are the recipient of the Hero of Russia Award and also the Gold Star of the Lugansk Republic, which means you've been involved in this conflict for some time now. Can you give us an idea of how the conflict has changed from the beginning when it started back in February and March to where we are today, and what the role of the Chechen Special Forces has been? And how has that changed over time?
Yes, I can say that I was directly evidenced that from the first day, and I can tell you what was the format and what were the circumstances of the conflict, how it was evolving. I have to tell you that from the very beginning, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation set the goal, which is a normal goal, and I was listening to the radio and to the messages that they tried to do as much as possible to lose as less as people as possible, to save as many people as possible. They tried to inflict as less damage as possible to the cities and to the civilians. Of course, we didn't plan from the beginning this devastating destruction and elimination of cities and villages as the American forces used to do. Russia set a task, set a goal initially to bring Ukraine to the state where it could understand and that it is not possible for it to be in the NATO bloc, and the world should also see, and the Russian troops should show to the world that we can lead the fight not only to Ukraine but also against those who stand up against us. The more the NATO bloc, and in first place America, intervenes in the responsibility area of the Russian Federation and the territory which has to stay neutral, the territory of Ukraine, the more forces and efforts is invested there, the more weapons and the more powerful the weapon coming to the front, the stronger those events become dangerous and heavier and severe. And as a result, we have the picture and the situation, and I can tell you that on the front, we practically have no Ukrainians anymore. At the front, on the grounds, we have, and if you listen to the radio on air, you hear just English, Polish language, and it turns out that those people who are called foreign mercenaries are staffed militaries both from the states, from England and other NATO bloc states, NATO bloc member states. In essence, the war, which started from only one item, from one goal to leave Ukraine, like, can we say, neutral without entering NATO bloc. And the war, which in the very beginning of the conflict against Ukraine, this war grew and turned to the conflict between Russia and the NATO bloc, and first and foremost against the US, which governs this situation. All masks are now off. The only question is how far America is ready and Europe is ready to go in this war against Russia. I have to stress that we are ready to go to the very end, and for us, let's say, the death at this sacred war would be just a present from our Lord. And for us, the death is as precious for us as for the bloc NATO militaries is the life for these benefits. We are ready to go to the end, and our special detachment, Akhmat, is the active detachment, and together with the second corps of LPR are fighting for the villages and cities on the territory of Luhansk, People's Republic. We released the LPR and also part of DPR, and we are going to continue this work, this fight, and independent how many enemies will stand up against us, the God is on our side.
Thank you very much for that answer. Here's a fundamental question. One of the objectives that has been set for the special military operation by the Russian Ministry of Defense is the demilitarization of Ukraine. And I have been led to believe that that meant to eliminate the NATO influence on the Ukrainian army. But what you just described is a Ukrainian military that is, in effect, a NATO military. Does this mean that the war cannot end until the Ukrainian military is destroyed?
Well, let me answer to your question in the following way. The Ukraine war machine does not exist. The Ukraine military machine doesn't exist. If the NATO bloc, which under the aegis of the war to the last Ukrainian, will just step back from behind of Ukraine, Ukraine will not be able to hold even one day. Today, in essence, the Ukraine people is at the front and on the bayonets of the NATO bloc militaries, of the NATO bloc troops. And if this pressure is piled on the Ukrainian management and government, on Ukrainians who are conscripted in thousands, and they are dying on the front in thousands, in 100,000s. And if we remove this needle of NATO, which injects money into the Ukrainian military and which come back to the to America in the format of different accounts which being pumped in with money, with Bitcoin, as it was discovered just recently. If this stops to work, if the system of encashment stops working, of this laundry machine of Ukraine, if we remove the forces and means which are now enforced in America to make work this laundry machine properly, Ukraine will not be able to withstand even one day. And you know that that. You know that also. If someone would say that it could withstand, I can prove it very easily. Let them ask me any question, and I will give the answer.
Okay, I'm going to take you up on your challenge. Nazis. In the United States, we're told it's exaggerated. There are no Nazis in Ukraine. If there are, there's a small number of them. What's your understanding? You have frontline experience. You have fought the Ukrainian enemy. Is there a Nazi problem in Ukraine? Is there a Nazi threat? Is this something that the world should be concerned about?
You know what is most interesting? The most interesting is that Ahmat said, would it be for the colleague sitting in front of me, he should know that America is the state which has not one face, but multiple faces, multiple masks. And if America, for such events and for such things happening in Ukraine, every state in the world could be put under sanctions, destroyed for killing people, although Nazis was in a slightly different form. They said that there are some Islamic terrorists or something, but indeed, if we take a look at what happens on the territory of Ukraine, if we take a look at massive killings and massacres, just for the fact that people, citizens, which are Russians in blood, just because they want to speak Russian language, only because they want to watch TV when in Russian, if only for that they get killed in hundreds and thousands, and America turns a blind eye to that, I would ask a question: what else should there be which the world should see to understand, and America should accept and confirm that this is Nazis? All these gestures of Nazis, of fascists by youth, the whole rallies with flags, nationalist flags, with nationalist symbols, with portraits of Nazis from the World War II, many thousands marching across Kiev, and America doesn't want to see it. And the most scary Nazis of Ukraine, Azovs, are being accepted in the White House. Well, we have to say that I have a question. It's interesting. I wonder what America thinks is Nazi, what Nazi means for America. When one Muslim would say that he wants to go fight against America, is this a Nazism? However, yes, I'm one of those who fights. I'm 49 now. I've been fighting 28 years. I was fighting against terrorists, but I don't call them Islamic terrorists, because the word Islam means and stipulates that there's no world terrorism after this word. There were a lot of people prepared by the American institutions, and America is the side to blame in training all those Al-Qaeda and other organizations which were saturated by weapons by America. With weapons by America. The question is, if they train people first and then destroy them and say that these are some terrorists or something, in the same way, America has been training same Azovs for many decades, for last decades, and they prepared them and trained them in special camps and which are located in European countries, and they make everything to make them kill the most Russians possible. Just think about it. How myself as a commander will never say and would never ask to kill as many people as possible of any nationality or a confession. This tells us that these people don't have God. They have no God in their souls. They are absolutely inhuman and they have no humanity. It tells us that they developed this Nazi in them, and myself and Mr. Kadyrov calls fascism, Satanism. This is the Nazis. Look, just recently there was an event when 11 soldiers of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation were just plainly executed when they left the building. Isn't it a Nazism? Isn't it a fascism? And where are those concerns of NATO bloc and America? Where is an extraordinary meeting of the Security Council of UN? No, we don't see it. Or when when I say you, I do not direct it to you. I don't mean you personally, you, my counterparty in this show. I just ask you to consider it that I am addressing to the heads of NATO and America. The peoples of America and NATO member countries are absolutely innocent. But if we call somebody a criminal, if this person serves America, we can't call it a good guy. What else is interesting? Just imagine if the management, the government of the state will change in America, Democrats will leave, and we already see that the management setup of Senate has changed. So, and America starts to gradually to understand that Ukraine is the terrorist state. Part of them already understand that it's of no use to invest so much money in Ukraine, to inject so much in form of weapon. You should turn to your peoples and to your internal matters. The essence of what happens can be considered, especially from the point of view where you are standing. If you are a state official of of America, of the US, or if you deal anything in this state, for the slightest expression of your opinion on what happens in Europe, which is not right, you can be fired, you can be fined, penalized, blocked, your account could be blocked. It turns out that, an Nazi and fascist regime is ruling in the States, in America, which supports its child in the Ukraine. That's what I see this situation. That's how I see this situation.
Well, thank you very much for your response. Let me just answer this. I'm a former Marine, so I know what the law of war is. I know what war is. And I know that you don't shoot prisoners of war. And I'm ashamed that my country hasn't taken the proper stance and condemned the actions of those who murdered those 11 Russian soldiers and who have murdered other Russian soldiers as well. You said that the American people are innocent. We're not innocent. We're responsible for our government. We're the ones who are the moral conscience of our leaders. And if we remain silent on this murder, then we're as guilty as our government is on that. So I understand that you meant well, but the American people have much to account for here because we're the ones who empower our government to do what they're doing there. But that's just me venting. I'm very frustrated by this because as somebody who has been to war and understands war, warriors don't murder defenseless civilians or defenseless soldiers. So the people you're fighting clearly aren't warriors. they're murderers, but now I'm stopping being a journalist and I'm becoming involved in this. So I'm going to step back to being somebody asking questions. The Chechens are very proud of their military prowess, as they should be. I just want to take a step back. There's a military academy, a Russian Special Forces Academy in Chechnya that trains the Akhmat Special Forces and others. Were you involved in the creation of this academy, and can you give us some idea of the quality of the soldier that's produced by this institution?
Let me start from the following. You were absolutely right by saying that Americans, as people who keep silent, if they keep silent, they are guilty. But I'd like to correct you. Just please listen to me. I don't say that as many people as possible should be killed for the fact that the government of these people came to power in the form of this Satanist or fascist shape. To say that to kill more Americans or French, Germans, that would be wrong. When, in this case, we would drive under this label those people like you who understand correctly what happens and try to influence the situation somehow. We have to divide clearly the people and those guys who, by having captured the power, suppress America and American people, deceive people, and lead their people to the abyss, after which America will cease to exist. And there will be no great power of America anymore in this case, because everything is done to make America not a great country anymore. This is first. Second, I should say that spetsnaz, Rus, from the very beginning to the very end, is the product of Ramzan Kadyrov, head of Chechen Republic. In essence, the goal to make this institution, Rus spetsnaz, comes from the concept of the first president, Ahmad Kadyrov, who instructed us to train our youth, to prepare our youth in all possible areas, sports, culture, and also, and first and foremost, probably to prepare our population, our youth, in the military format, because we were always ready to stand up for the interest of our state and of our people. Proceeding from this concept, Ramzan Kadyrov set the goal and set the task and created this institution, Rus spetsnaz. And with pleasure, I have to say, as a team member of Kadyrov's team, within this team, I also have some part of contribution in establishing this institution. And I also took some part in this project. The fact is, if you noticed, probably, the institution Rus spetsnaz, which appeared from nowhere, if we may say so, after several months, managed to select fighters from different detachments, and under control of Ramzan Kadyrov, they trained militaries, they trained soldiers who, for the first time in the history of the Russian Federation, visited the competitions of special forces in the world, and they won the first place in these games. The training took only a few months, and for a few months the Rus spetsnaz, the special forces, special soldiers, fighters from the law enforcement agencies of Chechen Republic, trained by Rus spetsnaz, they managed to win the first place in these special forces competition. For dozens of years, fighters from other countries went for these competitions, and Chechens, as they are, from the old times, we can be proud of saying that we were very good fighters in the history. This is the people who lives by the Chechen ethnical code. We have a lot of restrictions, and many things are prohibited for us. The only way is what we do should be for the benefit of our people, for our religion. We, as pure Muslims, cannot accept when we could diminish or hurt or kill a person who is weaker than us. We, being at this war, you should understand, we have absolutely no need to resort to those items on some conventions or blocks, Organization of United Nations or others. We always compare, we always observe our ethical code. And I have to reassure you that our Chechen moral code is much more severe than all charters and instructions of the UN. In this format, it turns out, the spirit of the military spirit of our people was combined with modern military technologies, weapon and equipment, and it turned out that we have got a hybrid warrior in the end, who are ready to go to the end, who never retreat, warriors who always execute orders of the Commander-in-Chief of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, and we can be proud to say that we special troops Akhmat is the warriors of ISIS, of Jesus. First, we always place on the first foremost foreground our belief in God, our faith in God. And with this, we can come to the result, which will be for us supported and directed by our Lord. And Rus spetsnaz took its part and made a great contribution in this fight. Every week we receive new 200 people who are being trained. We have rotation, of course. A lot of people, many people are willing to enter our academy. Even the form of mobilization which happens in Russia, there's no need for this mobilization in our republic, because we have an endless flow of those volunteers who want to go for it. They all are going, they all undergo training in Rus spetsnaz under the direct control of Ramzan Kadyrov, and the result, how good we are, how good warriors and fighters we are obvious for the enemy.
Thank you for that. Looking forward, there is going to be the arrival on the battlefield in the coming months or weeks of over 200,000 mobilized troops. How do you believe that's going to impact the special military operation? How do you see this conflict going forward? You said that you're going to fight until the end. With this arrival of the 200,000 troops, do you expect that the end is going to be sooner, or is this war going to drag on?
Let me note first that I don't think that the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation sorry, no sound.
Unfortunately, that's the reality of doing an interview in times of war. That was a frontline commander, Apti Alaudinov, a Chechen, a hero of Russia, a hero of the Lugansk Republic, a hero of Chechnya, a man with extensive combat experience. And I think it was an invaluable interview to give us the frontline perspective of what's going on and his role in the current conflict. I think we have him back. So I think that's the end of the interview. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Remember, knowledge is power. My name's Scott Ritter. Have a great day.